do this. There's the lady. She's told us it's working, so I'm going to trust her. Lovely. So, Michelle, we've just seen an example of your beautiful work. There is another example just behind you. I think it might be lovely to know a little bit more about how what your process is when you come to illustrate a story and how that kind of links to your experience with Walk the Wheel.
Okay, so the thing I loved about illustrating Walk the Wheel was how the stories resonated with me. And so, but when I started off the process, because a lot of the time, images would just come to my head. Like I think the first one I illustrated was Buck in the Autumn, and that image just popped in. And then once it's in, I can't get rid of it, and then I have to draw it. It's just the way it works. So what I start doing though is I just want to make sure if I include all the elements of the story, because there's ways of, you illustrate, you don't want to sort of you can't draw every single piece of the story, but you can put elements in to lead you through the story. So I'd sort of write little keywords like what's there, like the harvest, this, that, and the fox, maybe there's some animals, the owl, there's things like that. So I put them all there and I make sure that I include them. But it's more about, and then when I start drawing, so I draw with pen, I'm a pen drawer, and once I start drawing, I kind of sketch out very roughly on my paper, just the composition, just where things are going to be. And then once I start drawing, the pen just does the work, really. It just kind of goes through. And there is the problem, though, that sometimes you draw too much. And I think we had that with one of the illustrations, and I couldn't stop. And I kept looking at it going, stop. No, I don't want to stop. Stop. No, I don't want to stop. Oh, for goodness sake, stop. I sent it to you. And Keli said, it's lovely, but basically in a subtext, you should have stopped. So that was, but again, it's just, sometimes you need to go through that process in order to pull yourself back. And then the next time I drew it better because I've been through that process. So sometimes it does take drawing a full illustration to actually come back and draw the right illustration. And the thing is, I don't mind that process. I actually really enjoy that process. So yeah, I think that sums it up as much as I can sum it up in words. Yes.
I think you did a great job. Yeah, that I definitely recognize some of that from drafting. Sometimes you write a draft and you just have to keep writing and keep writing and keep writing and pare it all down afterwards once you've got it all out there. Yeah.
Yeah, but you've got to get it out there first.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And what was it that drew you to Walk the Wheel specifically? What was it that made you say yes to kind of taking on that?
I've always been interested in myth, folklore stories. I'm a storyteller in my head. I don't write stories. I'm not a writer. I leave that to the to the professionals. But I always tell stories in my head and I always see stories. And that's, I think, is what drew me to illustration in the first place. Was I like narratives. I like creating visuals for narratives. And this was honestly, when I read this first story you sent me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like my dream. This is like everything I've always wanted to do in this story. So yeah, there was never going to be, it was as if it had been gifted. It was brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, no, I feel exactly the same. It was as soon as I saw your first pictures, I was like, I knew you got it. You were taking the images out of my head, which was magic in its own way. So I'm just so glad you said yes. So glad you said yes. Oh, lovely. Do you have a favorite illustration from the book? And if so, why that one?
Do you know, I've been pondering that because I think I do, and every time I think I do, I change my mind. But I think because my favorite character is Ivy. I loved her journey, I loved her story, and I think that's always going to be my favorite illustration. And because there was certain things I'd seen that inspired me to draw it in that particular way. So I think I have to say that that's probably my favorite one. Yeah. Ivy was a little personal hero of mine. I loved her.
Ivy's pretty special, and her illustration, Michelle's going to show a reel shortly of all of the images for anyone that hasn't seen them, and her illustration is so detailed, and so there's the way you use texture and kind of patterning to just sort of create the cave it blew me away when I saw Ivy.
I think that one came to me. I think I had the one image in my head and that was it. That was the one I was going to draw. I don't think I even sent you other drafts. I can't remember. I think it was just that one, and it just came to me. I loved it. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you want to show the reel now? Could we show everybody?
Yes, okay. That would be nice, actually.
That would be lovely. And then everyone can see your lovely work.
Let me find it. It was here a minute ago. Right. Okay. Can you all see that? Okay, right. Oh, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Okay.
They're all
That's
so
it.
beautiful. So we'll show that again at the end. It's worth having a peek because there will be a giveaway this evening. If we don't have time to do it in the call, I'll do it outside the call, and I will let everyone know on social media and stuff who wins. The winner will get to have a print of one of those beautiful illustrations for themselves. So yes, we'll show it again at the end so that you can clock the one that you might choose if you are the winner of the giveaway. Wonderful. Would you mind asking me some questions, Michelle?
Absolutely not. So I would love to ask you some questions. So one of the things, I know you've spoken a little bit about it in terms of but why the wheel? Like, why did you feel compelled to write about it? I know you've touched on that, but is there any more you want to add to that?
I think the only thing I would add is, so I've talked about how the wheel is personal to me and how I wanted to introduce it to my child, but I also think the wheel has a place in the world, and I think it has a power in that it is an invitation to everybody, regardless of belief, regardless of religion, regardless of faith or spirituality. It's an invitation to take moments throughout the year to take notice of what is happening beyond your life, beyond our human busyness. It's an encouragement to kind of look beyond ourselves and to what is happening in the wider world. And I think, considering the situation we are in at the moment with climate and with biodiversity and ecology crisis, all this kind of thing, the more we can look out and the more opportunities people have to look out and recognize how things are changing, and perhaps how things are changing not for the better. That can only be a good thing. So I would I sort of see the wheel as having a place in the wider context of perhaps the whole climate ecology issue as well.
Right. Okay. That's really. And so, in terms of, I mean, writing's one thing, but bringing the book to life, that must be a totally different ball game, shall we say. So what sort of challenges, what were the biggest challenges that you have to face and then overcome in order to make the book real, bring it to life?
I think obviously finding the right people is the first challenge, and thankfully finding you was surprisingly easy. It was one of those things. It does feel fated. It feels like it happened. It was meant to happen. But I think probably the biggest challenge for me was overcoming my own sort of internal gatekeeper. I had convinced myself that in order to be a proper writer and have a proper book, you had to go through particular channels, you had to be published by a publisher, and you had to be validated and accepted by them in order to make the work worth creating. And I think it took a while for me to deconstruct that in my head. But once I did, and I realized that I didn't have to wait for a publisher to tell me that these stories were worthwhile, I could bring them into the world myself. I could go out, I could find the people, and I could make it happen. And just that was a huge moment. And it was as if by magic, I kind of reached that point, and a friend came to me who had just published a book with another friend and was sort of like, and these are the steps you need to take. And she gave me a little roadmap almost, and I was able to just follow the roadmap. And that kind of allowed me, that gave me the confidence. Then I had a roadmap and I knew I didn't have to wait for permission from anybody but myself. And as soon as those two things happened, everything started to fall into place. And I met the people I needed to meet, or I found the people that I needed, and I did all the things. And suddenly it was a book. And then the only challenge was waiting for it to arrive and missing the delivery and having to having to rush another delivery for the in-person book launch. But yeah, I would say that was the biggest one, not believing that I had permission to do it alone.
Yeah, I can totally appreciate that. And then I suppose that brings me to my next question. Like that said, like, is there a story that you've written that gives you a really particularly meaningful message for you that you carry with you? Or to throw the same question back at you, do you have a character that really resonates with you, that you're really fond of, that you feel bonded to more than the others.
It's so tricky, isn't it? I don't like picking one. It feels unfair. I feel like I'm betraying them. They're like my children. But I think anyone who knows me that reads May's story will recognize that May is in me and I am very much in her. And I didn't realize that until I'd written the story. And then I read it back and I was like, oh, this is me. This happened to me. I went away from home and then I came back again. And that feeling of having to come back and assimilate into perhaps not the life you imagined, and then refinding what that means through relationship, that's my journey in a very small nutshell. So May is quite important. But I think I also have a soft spot for the wheat in the Lammas story, because although it is a silly character, I'm quite pleased that there is a character in there that would very unlikely to be talking and being as sarcastic and ridiculous as it is in any other stories. Yeah, so I think the wheat as well. And in terms of a favorite story, I think Ivy's story, as you said, the journey that Ivy goes on in the Midwinter story, that's one for me that always gives me hope and yeah, to move forward. So yeah, lovely. Thank you, Michelle. Right, does anyone else have any other questions? I can see we're fast approaching 8 o'clock because time always flies. I think Jenny just asked a question in the chat about Amazon. Yes, my book isn't for sale on Amazon. I know, controversial. I made the choice not to sell on Amazon because the amount of money that Amazon take per book is huge. And because I've done all of this myself and I've funded all of this myself, it doesn't make sense from a purely fiscal perspective for me to sell on Amazon right now. But also, I suppose I'm not too worried about being on a bestseller list. I'd just quite like people to have the book. And so I'm quite happy at the moment to just be sort of selling it to people that find me. I believe the people that want to read the book will hopefully find it. So it all goes through my website at the moment, which Faye has helpfully put in the chat. And yes, you can buy a copy direct from me there. Or if you ever spot me at an event, I might be at a few events from now on, then you'd obviously be able to get a copy from there too. Okay, there's some more things coming through in the chat. So I'm gonna look. Is it possible to buy prints of the artwork? The wheel drawing is beautiful, isn't it? Michelle?
Yes, absolutely. Again, you can contact me through my website, which I shall put in the chat as well. And I can absolutely, yes, and I can actually do you some, I'm selling them in black and white at the moment, but I can do some, I can do you some limited edition watercolor touches to it if you prefer that. So just let me know if you like. I will just pop that in the chat as well, and you can just contact me directly. There we go.
Fabulous.
Oops, sorry, there we go. Butterfingers there. That's my website. So you can just, they have got them all on the website. I haven't put any color ones up there. I must do that, but they're in my collection section in my gallery, and you can have a look there and you can choose. And obviously, just let me know. Okay, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Jenny, you mentioned buying a copy for a present. Yep, absolutely. I will have to see about a recording for tonight. I need to sort of figure out the files and everything. But if you drop me an email or contact me through my website, we can chat. That's fine. Does anyone else have a question about the book, about the process, for Michelle, for me? We're all good.
Great.
Oh no, Dan's is typing. She needs me to wait one moment. I'm happy to do that. You can unmute yourself if you want to talk, if it's easier. Feel free to unmute if it's easier. Oh, you mostly done it now, I imagine. Oh, there
you've had these stories brewing in you for a while. Have you got any others burning inside?
The eternal question. Yes and no. Somebody, a very lovely person who read May's story recently contacted me and said, do you have the stories that she told the tree? Because I'd quite like to read them. So the stories of May's life. And then I had a moment of, that would be an interesting story. That's very, very, very new. I'm also currently working on a dissertation. I'm doing a master's degree in creative writing, and I'm hoping that my dissertation will be the next project. That is more likely to be non-fiction, but I am working on how to make non-fiction, how to write non-fiction with a language that is as animist as possible, so that treats more than human beings with respect, care, compassion, and doesn't make assumptions or commodify or things like that. So that's my research at the moment, and there's going to be poetry and stuff in there as well. So it's all a bit of a moosh at the moment, but there will hopefully be something coming out of that in the next, who knows. There we go. Pippa asks, how are you feeling in yourself now the book is out in the world? Thrilled. Thrilled and so proud. Which I think I'm allowed to say, incredibly proud to sort of have it exist and be real. And it sort of feels not real. I think I need to sit down and read it at some point, because it's become a kind of detached thing for me. So it will be nice to sit down at some point and enjoy it as a book, and yeah, but thrilled. Michelle, I think the next one's for you.
Oh, I think I saw it there. It was from Faye, wasn't it? Sorry, let me just open that up. Oh, sorry. Right. How do I often collaborate with my illustrations like with the book? I do collaborate, but this was actually my first book. So I've done things like I've drawn pictures for candle makers, for an estate agent, for just random sort of commissions in random places, really. But this was my first book, and this was my dream. And I mean, I've always I think I've wanted to illustrate books since I was like knee high to a grasshopper, basically. So I'm hoping there'll be more. You never know. You never know. Yeah. But yeah,
I think there absolutely should be. You couldn't tell. It took me a long time to know. I don't think I knew that till fairly recently, and was shocked when I found out, because you were so professional and you knew you had a vision and you had a process, and I felt so taken care of that it was lovely. So yeah, you've absolutely done the whole, it's the fake it till you make it kind of like just mentality. Just you bossed it. It's going to be definitely more on the cards, I'm sure.
I'm just wondering if we should share the random way in which we met.
Yes, we could very briefly. Yeah, so we did meet very strangely. So I live in Glossop. Michelle, you're not that far out, are you?
Yeah, I'm in Rayno, Macclesfield. The other sort of about 40 minutes away. Yeah.
So about 40 minutes away.
South of the Peaks, yeah.
Yeah, so 2 Christmases ago, Michelle came to one of our local schools to do a Christmas fair. And she'd set up a beautiful stall, and she was selling lots of lovely prints and calendars. And she'd also set up a beautiful little table for the children with tiny canvases that they could paint a picture on. So my kiddo went over to paint a picture, which we still put out every Christmas because they're that proud of it. And so are we. And I saw her work, and I bought a calendar. And my husband and I also bought each other solstice gifts without realizing, from Michelle. So we sort of snuck around each other and bought her out of a lot of stuff. And I went to Michelle and I just said at the time, I said, I think your work's incredible because it lives, it's got that magic to it, but it's still real. It's still grounded in the earth. It still feels real. It's not fantastical and fairy. It's real. And Michelle, I think you were happy. It was the first time I'd ever told anyone anything like that as well. I had to get my courage up to go and tell you how much I loved your work.
Wow. I mean, and I will say, when you contacted me months later, I forget how many months afterwards now, and I absolutely remembered you for that compliment. You used the word, your work isn't twee, and that always stuck with me, because that's exactly, I never wanted it to be twee, and I just loved that, and I always remembered that. And yeah, so it was just so random. If I hadn't gone to the market on that day at this particular school, you just never know how you meet people.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, I just thought we had to share that, because it sounds like, that we didn't sort of meet each other in a very professional, well, it was professional, but it wasn't actually professional at all, was it? It was like,
no, it was very serendipitous. Yeah. Yeah. And had I not kind of given you that compliment and gone up to speak to you, it might not have stayed in my brain. But when I was coming to find an illustrator, when I knew an illustrator was the next step, you immediately popped into mind. And I think having that foundation was just, it brought us together. So Christmas fairs are the way to go if anyone's looking for
everybody. Random meetings. Anyway, I just thought we should share that. Anyway,
Kelly. It's all a little bit magic. It's lovely.
It was a bit magic.
Oh, Well, we're already at 8 o'clock, which I can't believe. But it's also been lovely to share with you all and speak with you all. Does anyone else have anything they want to very quickly ask before we round things up? No, I don't think so. Okay, I'm going to end the recording now. I can close the chat. I've lost the button. I'll just close the chat and then there's the button.